How's it going, everybody? This is Chief from Mattapan. Thanks for tuning in. Chief from Mattapan. I'm an original and a founding member of Mass Bay Cannabis, which is a private cannabis club in Boston, Massachusetts. New England's original private cannabis club, Mass Bay Cannabis. I'm also a producer for The Reality on Boston Praise Radio and TV. The Reality with Judith Foster on Tuesdays, 8 to 10 a.m. on Boston Praise Radio and TV Network. You can go to TheReality.Boston and learn more about that. Check out massbaycannabis.org to learn more about the club. And my name's Chief. Like I said, I'm a cannabis consumer rights activist here in Massachusetts. We'll just be putting out a little of these helpful videos, keep people informed. And so what we're talking about now is actually a subject that's about a week old. But it doesn't mean that people don't know about it or it's not important anymore. It's very important. And if you check out the January 11th newspaper, the Dig Boston, January 11th, 2018, you'll find an article called, "Is There Moldy Cannabis in Mass?" Is There Moldy Cannabis in Mass? By Mike Crawford of Dig Boston. Like I said, it's about a week ago that this article came out, and actually I had been hearing these things for a while, so I'm really glad that Mike Crawford decided to do this article, because there's a lot of talk about cannabis. A lot of people are excited to get into the biz, excited to run down to the latest dispensary and throw their cash down because they've been assured there's a new legal market for cannabis and the government's being paid, so they're checking it out and everything is all safe. That's not really what's happening. If you read the article, you'll see at one of the dispensaries that's been an early dispensary opened up here in close to Boston. They New England Treatment Access is what it's called. I'll just read off a little bit, the beginning of this article, so you can understand where it's going. But like I said, this is talking about cannabis that's being served in the state of Massachusetts that happens to have mold, that happens to be getting people sick. Ann Hassel, it says, contaminated flower may be getting patients and employees sick. Ann Hassel had high hopes for a new career when she applied for a job serving medical marijuana patients at New England Treatment Access, NETA, a registered medical dispensary in Massachusetts. A licensed physical therapist, she believes in the efficacy of cannabis and says that she appreciated how NETA was presented as having a new business paradigm, one of worker input and responsive management. That was then, now nearly a year after she quit working at NETA and filed a complaint with the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, claiming she was regularly exposed to mold by cannabis flower. Hassel mockingly says NETA stands for Never Ethically Treating Anybody. Now, this is one of NETA's early employees here, because they're a new business to the state. These medical dispensaries are. So this is one of NETA's first employees, early employees, is saying they're unethical. So we didn't have to wait very long for these stories to come out, right? It says mold was an issue at both NETA's Franklin Cultivation Center and the Northampton dispensary, Hassel wrote in her complaint to OSHA. The former bud tender reported that she observed powdered mildew flower while trimming cannabis in 2016 in Franklin, but was instructed by a supervisor to, quote, cut around it. She also says that management dunked, quote, marijuana flower into a hydrogen peroxide solution to treat the mold, end of quote. So now what we have is there's mold at a medical dispensary in the cultivation system or the storage system somehow, and the employees who are around this product are getting sick. They brought this to management and it was kept quiet. Now also they're treating cannabis with hydrogen peroxide, a hydrogen peroxide solution to treat the mold. So this is not something that was known to patients that were going to Netta. They didn't know that their cannabis was being dipped in hydrogen peroxide, which, you know, it's like anything else with the government. The government will say, hey, this is great, this is fine. But then the people are like, what? And then, of course, after a while, you find out people aren't exactly fine. This is exactly what people are worrying about in the cannabis industry, turning control over to government and big corporations. We are terrified. We're terrified that these people are going to distribute contaminated cannabis. And so now we have a story coming out of Massachusetts that says exactly that. I mean, come on. It says, according to Dr. Jordan Tischler, a Harvard Medical School and Brigham and Women's Hospital trained physician who specializes in cannabis treatment, quote, hydrogen peroxide isn't going to contaminate the flower as peroxides are too unstable to remain. However, they are quite caustic and will react with the plant material. This may change the cannabinoids as well as general plant material into God knows what. Into God knows what. What? So not a great idea. Moldy flower should be tossed, unquote. Hassel's complaint drawn from her experience as a bud tender at Netta continues. In the dispensary, the marijuana flower is kept in bins that are constantly opened in order to weigh the flower in front of the patient. At times, while dispensing, I would experience allergic reactions, including throat irritation. On multiple occasions, I observed moldy flower in the bins, and when management was approached, I was told to take out the visibly moldy flower, but sell the remainder in the bin. That's what this employee is saying. Check out this article by Mike Crawford in TheReality.Boston about moldy cannabis in Mass. This is stuff we need to stay on top of. We need to be aware of. While we're creating a new market and we're handing it over to the folks that got money to create new businesses, and we're handing it over to the government who is to regulate this new market, we must be reminded not all people come to cannabis in the same way, right? People have different intentions. Some are trying to make money for themselves, others are making money for the state. There's a lot of new actors now, but what I'm concerned is happening is cannabis consumer rights are falling to the wayside as this new green rush takes hold and all this commercial activity, economic activity is being considered. We got the new Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission. Developing all different types of licenses to create money and make money off of cannabis. At the same time, they're neglecting cannabis consumer rights that are not about making money in cannabis or with cannabis, because what the Cannabis Control Commission here in Massachusetts hasn't understood yet is that not all cannabis is about making money. You see, there are some people in the cannabis community who don't want money exchanged for their cannabis. They feel like it makes it dirty. Some people are using cannabis for spiritual reasons. And you can imagine how this plant is considered holy. And so you don't dirty it up with all kinds of money and stuff like that. This is for spiritual cannabis consumers. It's unacceptable for them to have commercial cannabis, that many of them have to go to a special garden. And this is just a reality of cannabis consumer rights in America. If we have legal cannabis for medical purposes, for adult use, for recreational purposes, well, we also have cannabis, legal cannabis for religious and spiritual purposes. That's just how it works. It can't be legal for one and not the other. And so we need to stay up on these issues. We need to stay aware of this. If you're out there and you're advocating for cannabis in your community, please don't forget about the spiritual cannabis consumers. They have a different relationship with cannabis, and they're not looking forward to running out to the next dispensary that opens near them and slapping money down. That's absolutely not what it's about. Now that's fine. You're gonna have all types of cannabis consumers, but we don't want to create a market or an industry or a whole legal paradigm that's really only built to serve certain ones. If we're making cannabis consumer rights, it's for the religious folks too.